Okay. So I will give everyone a pro tip. If you ever want to be recognized when you come speak somewhere, wear the exact same outfit that you're wearing in your flyer, and it'll be an easy transition for you. I was telling my son, who's sitting in the back there, that it's time for me to go shopping, clearly. All right. So welcome to Thinking Like an Entrepreneur in Any Career. I'm going to start with a little bit of a backstory. And I packed so many points and statistics into this presentation that I have to read, and I'm sorry. So I've got lots of notes, lots of things. I'm going to try and keep you engaged, but I do have lots of things that I will actually have to read off here. But in 2008, the year that I graduated from Plymouth State, the job market was far from promising. Was anyone here trying to find a job in the job market in 2008? Okay, all right. I had worked really, really hard for my degree, and I fully believed that that alone would open doors into a stable and successful career. Yet even 9 months after graduation, I was still at the same waitressing job at the Tilton 99. Anybody been there recently, Tilton 99? Yeah, so I worked there for 3 years, putting myself through college. And I had sent out over 100 resumes and landed one interview that went nowhere past the first initial interview. Now, I want to just remind everyone that that was before LinkedIn Easy Apply. That didn't exist at that point in time, and you actually had to write cover letters for every single one of those resumes. So I wrote 100 of them to get one interview. It was a really poor return on investment. Then, unexpectedly, I was recommended to attend the Coos County Symposium, which is funded by Neil and Louise Tillotson, the former owners of the Balsam's Grand Resort Hotel. Has anyone been to Dixville Notch to see this hotel? A few in the back. Okay. It's absolutely gorgeous. I highly recommend a trip up Table Rock. It's an awesome hike, and it's great. And you can see this hotel. It's still there, even though it's not run today. The symposium brought together leaders from around New Hampshire to brainstorm ways to strengthen Coos County's economy. Coos County is located in the northernmost region of the state and has long been known for its paper mills, outdoor recreation, and unfortunately, poverty, holding the highest percentage out of any county in New Hampshire until 2017. I grew up in Pittsburgh, that small New Hampshire town way at the top, where my high school graduating class had 17 students in it. 17. I was one of 17. We joke that there were more moose than people, which there still are today, and students also ride snowmobiles to school. I never imagined that being at the symposium, I would be in a room full of accomplished professionals tackling major challenges that affected my own friends, my family, and my community. The first day, each participant introduced themselves, explaining why they were there. I shared my own challenges in finding a job in that economy, that I had graduated magna cum laude, I was a top 28 senior, and I had worked hard to put myself through college. I mentioned that I couldn't find meaningful work anywhere, let alone in the North Country, even if I wanted to, and then I shared how I had spent the entire drive behind a logging truck. This is how a logging truck should look, with wood in it. That day, I followed a logging truck that had scrap metal. They were using logging trucks at the time to scrap metal because they didn't have enough wood for the mills to be able to run them. It was a stark symbol of the timber industry's decline in the region and how many families were affected by it. It was an honest reflection of what I saw, and it resonated deeply with the leaders that were in the room. After I spoke, several people thanked me for what I had said and for voicing the region's struggles. That evening, I found myself at dinner with the Director of Travel and Tourism for the state of New Hampshire, Alice D'Souza, and the Commissioner of Resources and Economic Development at the time, George Bald, people I never imagined I would be sitting next to. By the end of our meal, they invited me to apply for a part-time role writing about the hidden gems of Coos County. This role wasn't about marketing. It was about reimagining possibilities in an area that had been overlooked for far too long, and they needed an insider who would be able to share a story. So I jumped at that opportunity. Soon I learned that I would be part of a committee. This committee was launching a world-class tourism brand and supporting an entire region's economy. Despite being the most junior person in the room, I'm the one way over here to the, what would be your left-hand side, but I led from where I stood. That's entrepreneurship in a nutshell, taking ownership of your slice of a mission, even if you don't own the whole organization. Over the next several months, I transformed that part-time role into a full-time one, bringing fresh ideas and relentless energy to the table. I annoyed every single person in that photograph with my passion for bringing tourism to the North Country of New Hampshire. I won out that full-time role over several more experienced people because of my passion and because of what I had brought to the table. We launched NewHampshireGrand.com, still up today if anyone wants to take a look at that website. Brought together 5 chambers of commerce, organized the first Northern New Hampshire tourism conferences, and applied for multiple grants that funded print and PR programs. We organized a trip for delegates, which is where this picture is taken from, of Coos County to go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, another area with similar challenges to ours that was a few years ahead in the Renaissance. I personally designed and hand-delivered attraction brochures to hotels and restaurants and held trainings to elevate social media knowledge for small business owners. Collectively, as a result, Coos County became the only county in 2009 that saw increased tourism revenue. All other counties in the entire state of New Hampshire went down at least 10%. Coos County was the only one that saw an impact. Looking back, I realized I was thinking like an entrepreneur. We were creating value and driving innovation without founding my own company. So, now that you know where I started, let me share a little bit about who I am today and the central idea guiding our time together. I'm Samantha Riel, CEO of Balsam&Cedar, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. It's a B2B agency that helps businesses do go-to-market processes that actually work. As I mentioned before, I am a proud graduate of Plymouth State University, 2008. I have an undergraduate degree, not an MBA, so that's kind of the background here. My journey from job hunting in a recession to helping revitalize Coos County to being a chief marketing officer at global tech startups and now the CEO of Balsam&Cedar opened my eyes to one very powerful truth. No matter what role you're in, entrepreneurship is essential to success. Anyone can be an entrepreneur. You should have that mindset to be able to be successful in your role. The experiences that the MBA students have had in the room, so MBA, you've already unlocked so many opportunities for yourself. It's the experiences here. By being here earning a degree, you have earned experiences for yourself. This degree has given you tools to lead a team, prepared you for vastly different economic climates, and informed you about every facet of business. You've had a chance to adopt any mindset that you choose coming out of this program. To truly unleash the power of that piece of paper, though, that you are about to receive, I'd encourage you to think like an entrepreneur, to create opportunities where others only see obstacles. Maybe you enrolled in this program to grow in your role, maybe to become part of a leadership team, maybe to smash a glass ceiling. Maybe you're launching a new venture or looking to disrupt your industry. Perhaps you're part of an established company that needs to pivot when strategy fails. In any scenario, the principles remain the same. Adopt a spirit of experimentation, find creative solutions to tough problems, and adapt quickly whenever the ground shifts beneath you. In today's rapidly changing world, it's no longer optional. Your MBA isn't a degree, it's a mindset, and you get to choose what form it will take. My experience at New Hampshire Grand taught me that entrepreneurial thinking doesn't mean starting a brand new business. It can mean taking ownership of any role you hold. It's an entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial mindset. Has anyone heard of the term intrapreneurial mindset? One. MBA students with an Intrapreneurial mindset is the established norms inside a company. You can work inside those. You can be as passionate as you need to be. You can own that part of your business. I will show you what that is in just a minute. So when I say entrepreneurial, I also mean intrapreneurial. For me, they are the same thing. So I'll explain in a little bit. My hope is that you walk away seeing your MBA through a new, more dynamic lens, ready to grow, innovate, and adapt no matter where your career takes you. So let's define entrepreneurial mindset. When I talk about this, I am referring to 3 core pillars: agility, innovation, and problem solving. Agility is the ability to quickly pivot when conditions change, something we all experienced in 2020. You were give me some grades of what age you were in 2020. Anybody? 16, 30, 4, okay, all right. So high school and college for the most part. Okay, all right. In 2020, I was in the midst of a global website launch for a publicly traded tech company called Bottomline Technologies. They're located in Portsmouth. I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of them, but that's where I was at that point. When the world flipped overnight to remote work, our team had put, and I do mean this literally, thousands of hours into the websites that we were supposed to launch, and we were still months away from deadline. I remember telling my team, I'll see you in 2 weeks in the office. I never went back to that office. Never went back to that office. From that point, we decided rather than delay that we would adapt on the fly, and we turned our living rooms, our spare bedrooms, and our kitchen tables into offices. And despite the upheaval, we managed to meet our original deadline and launch all of the 3 localized websites, so different languages, for 7 different business lines and 42 different products on time. That's incredible. My team carried all of that weight. They did an amazing job. That is agility. Another company that I worked with, but I wasn't there at the time when they did this, chose to take their product and repurpose it into an entirely new product to meet the demands of a post-2020 world. It was absolutely insane. They took something that was working for co-working spaces and turned it into desk booking systems and went to market in a whole new market. They created 2 separate business lines. That is what it means to recognize change and quickly shift and keep momentum. So the second one, innovation, is often mistaken for groundbreaking inventions. I can tell you right now that innovation is not groundbreaking inventions. It can be as simple as questioning one standard process that happens in your life. It can be at your business, or it can be even here at the school. For me, it was looking at the traditional model of MQL to SQL. Can anyone in this room identify what that is? MQL to SQL. Yes. Standard what volume? Sir? It is the standard measurement for lead volume and generation in all marketing and sales organizations. All of them today. MQL means marketing qualified lead. SQL means sales qualified lead. Something that you will come into, the first job that you have out of your program, you will absolutely come into those will be things that you're talking about. It's an issue because when you start naming things MQL and SQL, that immediately puts marketing and sales against each other, right? So what I did was I took the whole naming convention out the window and said, I only care about when people raise their hand and say they want a demo. Immediately, sales and marketing aligned around actual conversations versus silly definitions. And that is innovation, shaking up old methods to try and achieve a more effective outcome. Last one is problem solving. And this is the most personal for me, and I hope a story that will resonate with you as well. I learned most profoundly in October 2024 when I was let go from my role as a CMO. That to me was absolutely devastating. It was not unexpected because the board had decided to go in a different direction, but I took that opportunity to ask myself, when am I happiest and when do I love what I'm doing? And that introspection led me to start Balsam&Cedar. Before that, I don't think I would have done it. So I went from being a stressed out corporate executive to a business owner. to someone who prioritizes their health. I go to the gym 4 to 5 days a week. I haven't had any alcohol since sober October. I mean, all things that mean a lot to me now. And actually, my son is here. I don't know, he's snuck in the back, but he's also here. But I get to go skiing with him now all the time. I tell people that it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And so the problem is really just a chance to create new value. If you're willing to see it that way, as I absolutely did, problem solving is the number one way to go. Now, the fourth pillar, bringing these all together, leading from where you stand. I wish I could take credit for the saying, but this actually comes from Bottom Line. And again, the person who I'm going to use as the explanation or the example is also from Bottom Line. This is a picture of us in London. This is the Bottom Line marketing senior leadership team. The person in the middle here, Jarell, she's the most junior person on our team. She took the initiative to find better ways to organize and implement things and learn new technologies. She became a subject matter expert for both the CMO and senior leadership team. We needed her for the execution and everything that we did. There was a program called Airtable that no one else could figure out but her. She took it on in her initiative and she did it. She was 5 reporting levels away from the CEO. 5 reporting levels away. And we're considering ourselves a flat organization at the time. 5 reporting levels away. She didn't care. She owned her area of expertise and she did it with gusto. And so she is really the true example of what I think of when I hear this phrase, lead from where you stand. So as we move forward, keep these pillars in mind and remember that no matter if you're an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur, you can do just as much in the existing structure. So we've talked about the attributes of an entrepreneurial mindset. So now I'm just going to go into the how that mindset inspires action. And there's 3 ways that I see this happening and 3 ways that I really want you to take out of today. First one is challenging the status quo. It's not a buzzword. It's a measurable driver of innovation, engagement, and competitive edge. So this is where I need lots of help because there's a lot of stats in here. Research by the Corporate Executive Board found that companies encouraging employees to challenge existing processes are 3.5 times more likely to be classified as innovative leaders. McKinsey & Company report that 84% of executives consider innovation to be critical to growth strategy, but only 6 are satisfied with their innovative performance, often because they aren't willing to question established norms. When people ask why and propose what if, organizations don't just keep pace with change, they lead it. There's a concept called constructive dissent. Has anyone heard of constructive dissent? Okay, all right. Constructive dissent is when an organization allows people to question the status quo and to bring in that competitive advantage. And it helps them respond more quickly to market changes. My message to you is challenge, challenge, and challenge it again. Do it respectfully, but long gone are the days where we will achieve any state of homeostasis in business. Between the expanding global economy and technological innovation speeding up, business leaders that don't will absolutely be left behind. The next one, turning obstacles into opportunities, is equally critical and my second point of how the entrepreneurial mindset inspires action. When we see a roadblock, we should see an opportunity. My teams would tell you that I use the phrase, this is an opportunity for a solution, far too often. Harvard Business Review notes that organizations actively learning from failures tend to recover faster and become more competitive. There's a few examples that I'd love to show you about this. Does anyone know the original story of Slack? Why this would be something that would be a pivot? Slack was a video game. You can Google it right now. It was a video game and it failed. The reason that Slack is as big as it is today is because the development team needed a way for the developers to talk to each other. So they created this cool little messaging thing off to the side, and then they figured out, oh, that's actually a better product than our video game, and started selling it. That's how Slack came to be. So turning an obstacle into an opportunity. Here's another one, Netflix. Turning an obstacle into an opportunity. Netflix evolved from DVD rentals to streaming. Does anyone know how many DVDs you were allowed to take out at one time from Netflix with their top tier premium thing? Does anyone remember? 3 is a good guess. It might be 3. It might be 3. I thought it was 2. I had the one for $14.99 and you could do 2 DVDs at a time. I absolutely blew people's minds when I said that you could take 2 at a time and you had to return them before you could get a new one. It's absolutely crazy. But Netflix is another way to adapt, is another company that is adapted. And now here's a third one that you may not have heard of, Akumina. Akumina was founded out of the struggle for regular business users to use Microsoft SharePoint. Is anyone familiar with Microsoft SharePoint? Okay, because you're working with it in the university system, right? Yeah, okay. Microsoft SharePoint tends to be known as a difficult system to use. And so Akumina started to be able to make it easier for regular users to use it as an internal communication tool. But in 2021, when I was the head of marketing for Akumina, Microsoft announced something called Microsoft Viva. Microsoft Viva would have effectively negated the need for our product and slowed our pipeline to a complete crawl. We saw this, though, as an opportunity to make our product stronger. This was after a little bit of freaking out, and went to market with the Akumina plus Microsoft Viva information for our customers. Instead of resisting the change, we embraced it. And this allowed us to help our customers find the best solution for their needs. We ended that year as the most profitable sales year in company history. Take the time to step back from a problem. View it from a different perspective, and there is always an answer that will help you unlock a big opportunity. The last one in how to identify an entrepreneurial, I can't talk anymore. It's been too long, hold on. An entrepreneurial mindset inspires action is by adopting a global perspective. My last company was actually based in Sofia, Bulgaria. Has anyone by any chance ever been to Bulgaria? No, I normally don't get a lot of, yes, I've been to Bulgaria. I get a lot of, yes, I've been to London. Anybody London? Yes, I've been to London. Anybody France? Get those a lot, but never Sofia, Bulgaria. I have dubbed Sofia, Bulgaria as the Silicon Valley of Eastern Europe. The team there is absolutely phenomenal. Their strategies are lean and agile. They are quickly evolving and nearly perfect to textbook standards. Everyone pitches in to get a job done. This is cultural. Even the CEO, from the most junior content writer to the CEO, worked on things that we needed to get done, to get them done. Their work is world class. European agencies I've worked with have fresh ideas. It's really a true privilege to be working with them. This is my team in front of the Museum of Culture in the capital, Sofia, Bulgaria. And then to the picture on my left, your right. In Europe and Asia, technology in business and our personal lives is so much more advanced than that in the United States. On the right is the picture from 2018. So this is from 2018. Still, they're ahead of where we are. I ate in a restaurant that took your order on an iPhone and never let your credit card leave the table. This was a very geeky thing for me at the time because I was there for work, obviously. So I asked the waitress if I was able to take a picture, and she said yes. But all businesses operate this way in Europe. You don't have the whole thing where the server takes your credit card, they run it through a machine and comes back. You never have your credit card leave the table. It is all for security reasons. And so when I have colleagues of mine that come to the United States from Europe, they're like, whoa, what's happening? Where is our credit card going? They're very much taught you never let it out of your sight. A relatively simple thing, and I'm using air quotes because credit card processing is not a simple thing, but this is so far ahead. So global experience has accelerated my personal growth. And I enthusiastically suggest that any opportunity that you have to expand your global knowledge, you should take it. anything that you can do, even if it's working with a global team and you're here remotely. It is amazing what you will learn. Additionally, by 2030, 2/3 of the global middle class will reside in Asia, meaning that companies able to adapt to regional preferences can access massive markets. When Starbucks entered China in 2009, they went in with an emphasis on architectural design and tea-based beverages and community programs. And that led to over 6,000 stores in 2023. China is now their second largest market after the United States because of this cultural approach. Harvard Business Review notes that tailoring products to different cultural norms brings stronger brand loyalty. And when businesses diversify operations, they can mitigate risk if one region struggles. And they often can spot disruption signals in global markets earlier than their domestic-only counterparts can. In late 2019, I remember sitting at a US marketing leadership team meeting and being informed that our counterparts in Singapore and other APAC markets were entering into their business continuity plans. Business continuity plans are only used in massive issues. So we're talking issues where no one is able to make it to the office. So this news was alarming to us. Something called COVID-19 was making people sick, and there were forced lockdowns nationwide. As a precaution, our London office, not even the US office, our London office was testing the feasibility of a fully remote work situation. Fast forward a few months, and we all know what happened there. In 2023, my team in Bulgaria spoke daily about the impacts of the Ukrainian war on their country. They still do. Both of these scenarios seem so far away from us here in the US, but we can't ignore it from a global landscape perspective, with our economies being so intertwined. And this isn't a political statement. This is just a regular, our economies are intertwined. Leveraging global perspective creates a sustainable competitive advantage and positions companies to thrive in this ever-evolving world. So, we've talked about all kinds of things so far. Quick win strategies, ways to continue with the mindset. So now I'm going to get specific about the ways that you can bring some of these principles to life. I want you to be able to act on these mindsets in different work environments. And then even more importantly, address some common hurdles that some of us will face once we try and do them. All right, so corporations. Has anyone here worked in a corporation? Yeah, what kind of corporation?
So I worked in the oil and gas.
Ah, okay, all right. So when we talk about there's layers and things slow down, okay. Any other types of corporation? Yes?
I did like finance for an aerospace engineering company.
That's fun. I like that. That's great. Where else? Yeah?
I did like supply chain stuff for firearms.
For Ruger? Oh, cool. Supply chain. Talk about process. Okay. That's excellent. Any other corporations? Those are really good examples. Love those. Hold on. Now I just lost this. Okay. So we're talking multiple layers of approval and established processes. So how can you be entrepreneurial when you have, like Jarell did, 5 layers of reporting before you get to the CEO? Here are a few ideas, and I want you to think of a few while I'm going through these. So the first thing is, don't wait for perfect information. Test and evolve. You have things within your own job description that you are able to do. That's part of being passionate about your role. You have the opportunity to, within your remit, do things. So similar to what my role was at New Hampshire Grant, I had the ability to suggest, hey, there's a lot of people out here that need knowledge. I'm going to go do a social media class for them to help get them up to speed on where they should be for, at that point, 2009 social media standards. Or, hey, we really need to do a tourism conference to bring all of these different types of people together so they can talk about how to elevate the region. Those are all things that I could do within my particular job without needing to rely on anyone. I want you to think about some of the things, if you've ever worked at any job before, what were some of those things that you could do, but you could help move your business forward? Has anyone done a hackathon? They're the coolest things. Any innovation contests? Okay, hackathon. Hackathon is amazing. And it's when an entire company stops doing their normal work and is given a theme to say, create whatever you want, make it relate to our company, but it's got to be within this particular genre. So for example, one I just participated in was make our product better with AI. The teams had 3 days. They had to market their idea, and they had to actually build a working prototype. The product, from where it was 3 days before the end of the hackathon, went 10 times faster because we just focused on innovation. So cool. So when you get to wherever you land, your first corporate job, if you don't have one yet, or anything like that, suggest a hackathon, an innovation contest. They're so much fun. And then empower your ownership. Similar to what I mentioned with Jarrell, lead from where you stand. Now, I'm kind of trying to read the room in terms of who's done what, who hasn't done what. Are there any other ideas in terms of how you could be an entrepreneur in a corporation? Entrepreneur, intrapreneur. It's a big task. All right, I'm going to go to startups. That might be a little bit easier. Has anyone worked in a startup? Anyone started their own business? Yes.
I worked with a startup.
Worked with a startup. What did they do?
It was like mergers and acquisitions. It was like
Oh, PE. Okay. PE means private equity. Private equity is normally a group that has lots of startups. So they have something called a portfolio. So they might have 10 startups in their portfolio working with different ones. The reason that they have so many is because some startups succeed, some startups fail, and so they hedge their bets by having a lot of them. So that's why they would have a startup. So in a startup environment, one way that I can tell you that you should behave, or how you can behave as an entrepreneur, is use constraints to your advantage. Constraints people normally see as an issue. It's taking away from something that they can do. So for example, I can tell you no startup ever has enough budget. They're always bootstrapping. They're always trying to figure out how can we do more with less and how can we do it very, very quickly. Use constraints to your advantage. Don't wait until your product is perfect. So if anyone here is thinking about starting a new business, starting a startup, absolutely do not wait. It will not be perfect. When I launched Balsam&Cedar, I had a very interesting and very different set of messaging than I have today. It has only been 6 months since I've been officially live. Very different. It will, once you get out there and you start talking to people, you will have a lot more insight into how you pull your, how you can say what you want to say, and it's great. The last thing is embrace the pivot. The statistic is, I think, that 70% of startups actually switch what their core product is or their core deliverable is, just because they're still learning, things like that. I can tell you I've done it as well. The pivot is one of the most exciting things, can also be one of the scariest, but it is really important to do as part of a startup journey. Now, okay. Common scenarios holding you back. I went way off script, guys, so I'm very lost right now in terms of where I'm at. Okay. There are a few, well, let me start it this way. When you go into a corporate or a startup world, so when you're in the business world, and you start thinking like an entrepreneur, you're really putting yourself out there. You're putting your ideas out there. You're being really vulnerable with people to say, hey, I have this idea. Do you think I can do it? And so I want to address these 6 things that you might say, I don't really want to do it for different reasons. I want to address those because really those are the things that are going to keep you from really shining the way that you can as an entrepreneur, intrapreneur in a corporate business or in a startup. So the first one, fear of failure. We tend to view failure as a personal failing, but it's really just data. That's really important. Failure is really just data. If something doesn't work, don't hide it, analyze it. Do a quick retrospective. What were the assumptions going in and what turned out wrong? Conduct blameless postmortems. Has anyone heard the term postmortem before? No? Okay, all right. Postmortem, it sounds morbid because it is. It's after the project is ended. Everyone sits in a room and says, here's what went well, here's what didn't go well, and we have a really interesting talk. I'm sure that you can see how some of those could be blameful postmortems. That's not a word, but full of blame postmortems as opposed to blameless. Blameless postmortems are the single best data point that you can get in a corporate environment to be able to say, hey, this is what happened and this is how we're going to fix it next time. Create a fail fast, learn fast culture. Do things quickly, try things quickly, but once you realize that they're not working anymore, you need to stop. You don't want to waste time or budget. Share any lessons widely. It can be really hard in an environment where there's a lot of competition especially to say, hey, I did something that wasn't exactly right, but I'm sharing that with you so that nobody else makes the same mistake. And here's how we learned, and here's how we're going to continue. Here's how we're going to learn from that experience, and here's how we're going to make it better. It's a really important thing to share those lessons. And then something else that you don't hear about a lot is to celebrate smart failures. Again, it can be really hard to do, but if you fail, that can be just as valuable a data point as when you would do something correctly. Organizational resistance is always a fun one. It's really, organizational resistance comes down to when you're sold on your approach, when you're sold on your idea, but your boss and your leadership team is not. So this is where framing your idea like the people who you're trying to sell your idea to comes in handy, and it's not easy to do. A lot of the times leadership teams see things as just another wild and crazy idea. I was definitely guilty of this very early on in my career, where I would go up to my CEO and say, hey, I've never done this before, but I really want to do a tourism conference. I think it would be a really good idea to do a tourism conference for all of northern New Hampshire. And so taking that and turning it into, there's a lot of opportunities for growth, we can support all the business owners, is very different than saying, hey, I think it would be really great to bring all the tourism people together. So think about how you're messaging things. Speak the language of the decision makers. It was really helpful too to leverage champions, leverage allies. Sometimes when people hear things from more than one person, it becomes a lot easier for them to believe it. And then lastly, if there is anyone who has done this before you, do not reinvent the wheel. Please don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. Go to the Google machine, as everyone calls it these days, Google machine, and go find something that someone else has done and copy it. There are no new ideas. There are just remakes of good ones. And so I think that is really important for you to know, is go find the external proof points and use that before, so you can actually push your ideas forward. Time and resource constraints. This is something everyone experiences anyway, but when you're in a business environment, you need to prioritize ruthlessly. You need to start small, and you need to collaborate across teams. Knowledge gaps. In some organizations, there's some big knowledge gaps or siloed teams. Siloed teams refers to when there's people in separate departments that don't talk to each other. Think about how much knowledge is lost between those environments. You can highlight quick wins. You can create a knowledge marketplace, and you can do strategic partnerships. So for example, if you don't have the skill set that you need in your organization to do the role or to do the project that you're thinking of, find a partner, find an external partner, find a contractor. There are always ways that you can do it. And cultural complacency. Has anyone ever heard the phrase, this is how we've always done it? Has anyone actually been on the receiving end of that phrase? This is how we've always done it? Do you mind sharing the scenario in which you heard that?
The place I have a job currently right now, my coworker, who was someone I worked with, and she had a little bit more seniority than I did. She was like, this is what we've always done. But, there's always room for pivoting and innovation. But yeah, that was pretty much what she said. Anybody else? Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? This is what we've always done. The single most harmful sentence I've ever heard a business owner say, for sure. And I've already mentioned this, and I'm sure many of you here would agree. If you don't make those changes, you're going to be left behind.
There's 3 highlights here on this slide. I think the biggest one is storytelling. If you tell a story of how this will change or how others have changed using this exact same method, it certainly helps. And it does help you overcome the objection of this is how we've always done it. And lastly, the 6th one, misaligned priorities. It is so easy to think that your ideas or your priorities are everyone else's priority. There's so many coffee mugs even that say things like, I'm sorry, I should drop everything because it's your problem, but I need to go work on your problem, things like that. This is the same thing here when you're talking about an entrepreneurial mindset. It can be really difficult to align everyone around a same common goal and to overcome this particular one. But if you emphasize your strategic alignment, if you communicate the vision, don't assume everyone sees the same end goal that you do, and you can clearly articulate the benefits, that is a great way to overcome the issue of misaligned priorities. Okay, all right. So these hurdles, fear of failure, organizational resistance, time constraints, skills gaps, complacency, and distractions are all normal. But remember, every obstacle is an opportunity to refine your approach. At its core, entrepreneurial mindset is about action. It's about testing, it's about learning on the fly, it's not about a fancy job title, but it is taking your approach. It is about your approach and how you work. And you get to define that mindset. You get to define what it means for you to be an entrepreneur. So now I'm going to have you all do a quick thinking exercise, and then we will wrap up. So I'd like you to consider one obstacle that is in your current role today. If you don't have a outside role, if you don't have a job, or you can use one previously, or you can use one at school here too. Maybe it's a recurring bottleneck between departments or a lingering customer complaint. I want you to take that and try to flip it into an opportunity. I want you to think about it for a minute. I want you to then think about the following. It's a quick roadmap of what you can do. So you pick one strategy. It can be a mini hackathon, a pilot project, a new measure for customer success, something that's within your remit, something that's in your role that you would actually be able to have the power to implement today. Ignore the fact that you haven't done it yet. We haven't had this talk until today. Now you're an entrepreneur, all of you are. So what can you do today? Then I want you to implement it. And it might take some time, and that's completely okay. But remember, this is entirely within your control. I want you to check in with your colleagues on it. I want you to check in with your customers on it. And I want you to use metrics if possible. But I don't want you to underestimate anecdotal feedback. Anecdotal feedback is fantastic. Then I want you to iterate and share. I want you to share the findings. I want you to present data to leadership. And I want everyone to know if you succeeded or you failed. I want everyone to know what your original hypothesis was and why you thought that was a good idea. And then I want you to pick a bigger problem and tackle that one. I want you to use this problem, this solution, this process again and again, and that's how I want you to grow in your career. When I think about my career at beginning my career at New Hampshire Grand, I had no idea that what I was doing was entrepreneurial. Whether you view yourself as an entrepreneur or not, I do now. I certainly didn't then. These principles will help you continually reinvent your approach to work, leadership, and your overall impact. Does anyone want to share their one thing that they're going to work on? Yes. Time management. Talk more.
Just picking and choosing what I do with my time more, and choosing things that are going to help me get closer to the goals that I want to reach.
I like it.
Just wasting time.
Have you ever heard of a stop doing list? They're more important than to-do lists. Stop doing lists, and this is just a recommendation for anybody. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent now. Stop doing lists are things that you put down to say, this is not worth my time. You make a list of all the things that you have to do, and then prioritize it, the 80% or the top 20% that will bring you the 80% in return. So If you have 10 things on that list, pick the top 2. And then the rest of them get moved over to your stop doing list. Anybody else? You win the prize right now.
No one else talks.
Everyone's like, no, now I can't talk. That would be taking that away from her. She wins it anyway, but does anyone else want to? Because that was brave. You're welcome. Anybody else want to go? Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you all coming here to listen to me talk about entrepreneurial spirit and what it means to be an entrepreneur.